Hi, this is Elaine Shuttle again from the Milton Public Library, here for another installment of Tales from the Story Hat. And of course, I have my hat with me, covered with strange and wonderful things. I want to share a couple of stories today with you that were both written by a lady named Wanda Gag, who was an artist. She did mostly printmaking. Her parents were also artists. She was born in 1893 and was always determined to be an artist, and a successful one at that. And she was. Several of her stories were made into picture books that she illustrated. And I want to share a couple of those stories with you today. And the first one is called Gone is Gone. Now, one time, there lived a little man named Fritzl and his little wife named Liesel. They had a little baby named Kindley and a little dog named Spitz. They also had a cow, 2 goats, 3 pigs, and about a dozen geese, and a little farm on which they lived. Fritzl went out every day to plow the field or plant the seed or hoe the weeds or harvest a crop or cut the hay or bale the hay or whatever else needed doing about the farm. Liesel spent her days taking care of the baby, taking care of the farmyard, tending the garden, tending the animals, cooking the meals, and cleaning the house, and churning the butter, and doing all of the things that were necessary to keep the house well. One day, Fritzl came in from his work. It had been a hot day, and he was complaining about the heat and mopping his head with a big red handkerchief and moaning and groaning and, "Oh, my work is so hard. Liesel, you have no idea how hard it is to work out there. The sun is so hot and I'm doing so much work. You have it so easy here at the house." "Easy?" said Liesel. "You think I have it easy? I'm busy every minute of the day." "Oh," said Fritzl, "all you have to do is putter around the house and, sit on the grass or play with the baby. It's nothing compared to the work that I have to do." "Well," said Liesel, "if that's what you think, we shall see. Tomorrow we shall take it turnabout, and I will go out and cut the hay, and you will stay here and tend the house." Fritzl thought for only a moment. "Oh, that sounds wonderful," he said. "I should like that above all things." "Okay," said Liesel. Well, the next morning, the sun was just peeping up at dawn when Liesel set out for the field, carrying a jug of water with her and carrying her scythe over her shoulder. Now, for those of you without experience of a farm, a scythe has a long handle and a long curved blade, and you swing it back and forth to cut the hay. It's very sharp. Liesel went off to her work. Fritzl woke up. He said, "How nice it is not to have to run off at the crack of dawn." And he got up and dressed himself. And then he thought, let's see. For breakfast, I shall cook myself some fine sausages. So he got out a long string of sausages. You know, they were attached end to end. And he put them in the frying pan and started them over the fire. And they sizzled and popped, and it smelled so good. Oh, this is the life, he thought. And then he thought some more and said, you know what would go great with these sausages is a nice mug of cider. And quickly, he trotted down the cellar steps and over to the great big cider barrel that was sitting there. And he pulled out the bung, which is like a cork. It plugs up the hole that the cider runs out of, and set his mug down, a big mug, to let it start filling. As the mug was filling, he heard a noise from above, a scrabble, a clatter, a happy yip. Oh, that Spitz dog, he said. He's after my sausages. And Fritzl took off up the stairs just in time to see Spitzel heading out the door, dragging the whole string of sausages behind him. Spitz ran fast. Fritzl ran after him, but he was no match for the dog, and soon he was out of breath and huffing and puffing, and the dog was out of sight. Ah, well, said Fritzl, gone is gone. And he started back toward the house and then realized that in his hand he was still holding the bung from the cider barrel. I never put this back in the hole, he thought. And into the house he hurried, started down the cellar steps, and saw that his big mug was overflowing and there was cider all over the floor. Oh, dear, said Fritzl. Well, what's gone is gone, he said. He picked up his mug and went back upstairs. No breakfast for him that day. He drank a little of the cider, and then he thought, I had best start churning the butter. And so he took the churn outside and set it under a nice shady tree. And he poured in all of the fresh cream that they had. And then he took little baby Kindley out and sat her down in a field of daisies right next to him. And he began to churn the butter. Took the plunger and you go up and down and up and down and up and down. And he hummed to himself as he was working up and down and up and down and up and down. Oh, I never gave any water to the cow this morning. Oh, dear. He stopped his churning and he headed off to the barn, where he found the poor cow with her tongue hanging out, looking very thirsty indeed. He quickly gave her a big pail of water. And then he took her outside because he knew she would be hungry. And he thought he would walk her over to the nearby meadow. But as he started, he thought, oh no, I can't leave Kindley alone. I shall have to keep the cow here. Where can she eat? And then he had an idea. You see, his house was built into the side of a hill. And instead of shingles or tiles or even thatch on the roof, he had built his roof of strips of meadow sod. So there was grass and flowers growing out of the roof of the house. The cow can be up there and eat, And so he walked her up the hill and over the little roof of his shed and onto the roof of the house. There he left her. He turned around and started back towards the churn, and then he saw, oh no, Kindley was climbing up the side of the churn to peer into it, and the churn tipped, and all of the half-churned butter and cream spilled out all over the ground and all over Kindley. Oh dear, thought Fritzl. Well, gone is gone, he said. And so he stood the churn upright, and he picked up Kindley and wiped off what he could of the butter and cream and set her down in a sunny patch to dry off. And he thought, oh goodness, look at the time. The sun is nearly overhead. Why, Liesel will be coming in from the field soon for her lunch. I have to get it ready. I shall make her a nice pot of soup, he thought, and he went into the garden and he grabbed up some potatoes and some carrots and some celery and some cabbages and a few other odds and ends and started back for the house. On the way, he forgot to close the garden gate. He went into the house and sat everything down on the table and began peeling the potatoes and the carrots and chopping things up and throwing them into a big pot of water and thinking to himself, oh, this will make a wonderful soup. He heard a noise. Oh dear, the cow must be slipping, he thought. And back outside he went with a big coil of rope. He went up the hill, over the shed, onto the roof, and tied the rope tightly around the cow. And then he dropped the end of the rope down the chimney. He went back down into the house and tied the other end of the rope around his waist. There, he said, now the cow can't fall off. And he continued peeling his potatoes and chopping his vegetables and putting things in. And just as he was about to go back and relight his fire under the soup pot, there was a loud noise, and suddenly, ah! went Fritzl, because the rope tied onto his waist suddenly pulled him right up the chimney. Oh no, he thought, the cow has indeed fallen off the roof, and I'm stuck in the chimney. He couldn't get up and he couldn't get down, and there wasn't enough room for him to untie the rope, so he just dangled there. Oh dear. Well, about that time, Liesel came walking in from the field with her scythe over her shoulder, carrying her now empty water jug. And as she approached the house, she saw the churn on its side. What happened? She thought. Then she saw Kindley covered with butter, very stiff in the sun as it dried. And then she saw the cow hanging off the side of the house with her tongue hanging out and her eyes bulging. Oh no, what is this? Said Liesel. And she went over, took her scythe and went whoosh and cut the rope. Plump! The cow came down, a little bit shaken, but steady on her feet. And then Liesel started into the house. As she entered the door, the first thing she saw was the door to the cellar open and cider all over the floor of the cellar. Oh, goodness! And then she looked over at the fireplace, and there was the big pot hanging in the fireplace, no fire in sight, but there were 2 arms and 2 legs sticking out of the pot, waving frantically in a little gurgling sound. What on earth? Liesel went over and grabbed onto the arms and yanked, and Fritzl came out of the pot. because, of course, as soon as Liesel had cut the rope to let down the cow, Fritz was no longer up in the chimney. He came down into the pot. "Oh, oh," said Fritzl. "Oh, Liesel, never again will I say that your work is easier than mine. I had no idea," he said. "This has been just an awful day. Awful. There's no soup, there's no butter, there's nothing. Gone is gone," he thought. And then Liesel said to him, "Oh, don't worry, my dear. Perhaps tomorrow it will be easier for you." "Tomorrow?" said Fritzl. "No, gone is gone, and my days of housework are gone," he said. "Tomorrow I go back to the field. Never again will I say that all you do is putter around and take things easy." "Ah," said Liesel. "Well, in that case, I think we shall deal very well together from now on." And they did. That's Gone is Gone, a story by Wanda Gag. Our next story today is probably the story for which Wanda Gag is best known. In fact, it was the first book that she ever wrote. It was published in 1928. And of all the children's books that have been written in the United States, this is the picture book that has been in print the longest, because it's never been out of print since it was published in 1928, which is almost 100 years ago. And this story, thank you, Garfield the cat, on my hat, is called Millions of Cats. Once there was a very old man and a very old woman who lived in a little house that was surrounded by flowers on all sides except right in front of the door. But the very old man and the very old woman were very lonely in their little house. "Oh," said the very old woman one day, if only I had a sweet little kitten to keep me company, I would be so happy." "You want a kitten, my dear?" said the very old man. "Well, then I shall set out and get you one." And that very day he set out. He went up the hills and down the dales. He wandered along the banks of the streams and traveled and traveled and traveled until he came at last to a hill that was quite covered with cats. Cats here, cats there, cats and kittens everywhere. Hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. "Oh, how wonderful," said the very old man. "I shall surely be able to find just the right kitten for my old woman." And he began to look around. Right at his feet, he noticed a beautiful little fluffy white cat. "Oh, so lovely. You must be the most beautiful cat of all," he said. And he bent down and he picked up the cat. And as he did so, he saw another cat just a little way off who was all black and white in spots. And he was just adorable. So he picked him up. "I'll take you too." And then a little further on, he saw a cat that was all striped brown and yellow, like a tiger. "Oh, what a handsome cat you are. I'll take you too." It seemed that everywhere the old man looked, he saw another cat that was just too pretty to leave behind. And before he knew it, he had chosen all of those cats. And he set off the way he had come to take the cats home to his old woman. He walked along beside the streams. He walked down in the valleys and up over the hills, and it was quite amusing to see him being followed by all those hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Soon they came to a big lake of water. Meow, meow, we are thirsty, said the hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Well, here is the lake, said the very old man. Have a drink. Each cat took but one sip from the lake, and the lake was gone. Meow, meow, now we are hungry, said the hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Well, here is a hill with much grass, said the very old man. Eat some of that. Each cat ate one mouthful of grass, and the hill was bare. They all walked on. Soon they came near the house, and the very old woman saw them coming, and she went out to meet the very old man and said, "What is this that I see? I asked you for one little kitten, and here I see hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. They'll eat us out of house and home," she said. "Oh," said the very old man. I never thought of that." "Oh, dear," said the very old woman. "Well," said the very old man, "why don't we just pick one kitten to keep? Which one shall it be?" Well, the old woman looked at them, and she had the same problem the old man had had. Every cat she looked at seemed so cute and so adorable, and she just couldn't make up her mind. So finally she said to the very old man, "Well, why don't we let the cats decide for us? Let's ask them. Cats," she called, "which one of you is the handsomest?" "I am, I am, I am, meow, meow. No, I am, meow, meow, meow." Each cat thought it was the handsomest. And before they knew what was going on, the cats started fighting and scratching and biting at each other. And that frightened the very old man and the very old woman so much that they hurried into their house and shut the door. They did not like the noise they heard coming from outside. But eventually, there was no more noise. They cracked open the door and peeked out. There was not a cat to be seen anywhere. "What happened to them?" said the very old man. "Oh dear," said the very old woman. "I think they've all eaten each other up." "But wait," said the very old man. "What's down here?" And they looked down, and hidden in a little tuft of grass was a very scrawny little kitten. The old woman picked the kitten up and said, "How is it that you were not eaten with all the other hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of cats?" "Oh," said the kitten, "I'm not very handsome, so when they all started saying that they were, I didn't say anything at all, and nobody paid me any mind." "Oh, well, you come in and we will take care of you," said the very old woman. They went into the house and gave the kitten a nice warm bath and brushed his coat until it was shiny and dry. And then they started feeding him milk. And every day he ate milk and more milk and more milk, and he grew fatter and fatter until He was indeed a very handsome cat, said the little old woman. Yes, said the very old man. In fact, he is the handsomest cat of all, and I know because I have seen hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats, and not one was as handsome as this one. I'll bet some of you know that story, had it read to you when you were very little. Millions of Cats by Wanda Gag, her most famous and oldest story. And I want to remind you all, the end of May, on May 31st, bring your favorite teddy bears or teddy dogs or teddy cats to the gazebo at Town Hall at 11 o'clock on that Wednesday morning for our annual teddy bear picnic with Mama Steph and Buddy the Bear from the library. We hope to see you there. Thank you for listening to Stories from My Story Hat.